Hey guys, I want to talk to you about the phrase the end of times because I received a really big download about this just about an hour ago when a friend was talking to me about this particular phrase. And he was just using it plainly like most people do, talking about like the end of the world, the end of this earth and humanity as we know it. And I got a completely different interpretation that I had never really considered, probably because I really don't feel like what people are interpreting the end of times to be, that is anywhere where we're at right now in humanity. But I want to share with you a concept, an interpretation that might be something to explore, because even though we can get a message, it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, but also simultaneously, there can be multiple messages attached within one message. So multiple things could be true within that message. And so I'm going to offer you guys this download that I received about what end of times may actually mean. When we hear the phrase end of times, we think end of earth, end of humanity, the world is ending as we know it. However, when we hear the word time, what if end of times means the end of literal time? Time is a construct in this reality that is known to offer the fourth dimension, right? The fourth dimension is time when we look at a lot of quantum physics. And so if we know that time represents the dimension that actually creates the box of this reality, the matrix that we live in, what if the end of times actually means the end of time in itself, in how it acts upon us in this reality? I got this very strong understanding that the end of times could represent, for us as humanity, the leveling up, the breakthrough, the ascension, and I use ascension very hesitantly in this video, not in the way that it is described in so many other ways within the spiritual and religious communities, but more of like an ascending to a higher state of consciousness, ascending to a different understanding of what is going on, a state of being. And if we were to remove the concept of time, that would remove the fourth dimension, but not so much in a sense of it actually existing, but us allowing it to limit our sense of reality. What if the end of times actually means there is no more times as we know it? And I want to tie this into the Terrence Howard podcast with Joe Rogan, because there's also a tie into that. So stick with me for a second. If the time creates the box creates a limitation of our experience, of our reality. So that fourth dimension is what holds everything together, and we live in a confinement of whatever is in that box, otherwise known as the matrix. But what if we remove the barrier of time in a sense of how we perceive it, and know that time, many of you in my audience have been contemplating the idea of all time is existing now, the past, the present, and the future, it all exists now. So if we were to break that past and understand that things from the past are also merging with the now to change the future all at the same time, we've been playing with those constructs already. But what if, too, we understand that this dimension of reality, that time really does force us to stay within, our minds make the breakthrough of breaking through, ending the limitation of time so that we can go well beyond the reality that we as humanity have been living in for millennia? What if we actually understood that we can do so much more, that we can go far beyond with our own consciousness and the technology that we live in this body? There is so much more that we can interpret from this end of times that I was downloaded with. And I'm fascinated with this idea. Now, we take this concept and we take it into the Joe Rogan podcast with Terrence, which I will say, if you have not listened to that podcast, please do. I listened to it 3 times over last weekend because I was so enthralled with the information that Terrence was sharing. It is mind-blowing. And I'm going to do another video on one of the concepts that he talked about as well, because I got so many downloads during that podcast. But when he talks about this idea of time and he talks about the past, the present, and the future all being one. But he talks specifically about lines and how all of our mathematical equations are based on 2-dimensional reality, on things moving in a linear movement. Well, of course, our time, it moves in a very linear movement. It doesn't move in a wave. It doesn't move in a circle. Whereas if it were to move in a circle, we would know that the time is continuous in a sense of past, present, and future is all coming into one play. So if things actually do not move in a straight line, which he talks about is absolutely not the case. Nothing in the universe moves in a straight line. It all moves in waves and particles. So you can have the particle, if it's unobserved, it is stationary, which again is even debatable because there's always movement. Which I completely agree with. I've always said on this channel, the universe energy does not does not need to be still, does not like to stop. That doesn't stop. That's not how energy moves. And so when we are stopping or stagnant in our own growth, then we are not in alignment with the natural energies and laws of this universe. Now, don't mistaken when I say that there isn't a space for stillness, but even within our stillness, we are expanding, we are growing, we are moving, our consciousness is going elsewhere. So the concept of stillness and not moving is up for debate, okay? So you just keep that in mind, keep an open mind around that, because that's not what I'm saying. But when he talks about this idea of nothing moves linearly, then I feel like our humanity is on the precipice of a major breakthrough. I'm not saying it's happening tomorrow, but like I said in my podcast with Mary Ducina, I believe that the aurora borealis that we just had that hit the planet and created a beautiful light show also brought in new seeds of consciousness to the planet, new light packets of information. And through that solar storm and across the solar winds that came to planet Earth, I believe we're going to be going through a very strong awakening this summer. Now, does that mean that the end of times is happening this summer? No, I'm not saying that. I can't predict that. I don't know. But what I do feel greatly is that we are very close. We are encroaching on that moment in time that is ever present of us breaking through this construct of time that holds us in the matrix, that holds us within this box of reality, and that perhaps the end of times is actually nothing to fear except for those who want to control us, control our minds, keep us in a state of confinement. The end of times may actually be a very beautiful thing for humanity. The end of times may be a reason to celebrate. Something for you to think about. I want to say that if you are considering on making breakthroughs in your own limitations, transformations well beyond what you've ever imagined for yourself, I am hosting my Forbidden Journey Retreat in Breckenridge, Colorado this September 18th. Tickets are on sale if you'd like. I'm leaving the link in the description below. I'd love to have you there. And if you need to book a session with me one-on-one, links in the description box below to book with me right away. Guys, I love you so much. And don't forget, I am going to be dropping another episode of my reality TV series tomorrow. Super excited about that one. I have actually a lot to say about this one. And it's just super fun. Some of you have reached out to me and told me that you loved the structure. You loved hearing the different perspectives and just how to bring in spirituality in a whole new way, the healing journey, all that kind of stuff, relationships. So stay tuned. And I'm going to also drop another video on the Terrence Joe Rogan podcast, my thoughts on something that he talked about that I think is really, really important. Lots happening here. Guys, I love you so much. Have an incredible Memorial weekend for those of you here in the States, and I'll see you really soon.